How's it going, guys? AnxiousCynic back again with another Mine-imator tutorial. Something I got requested recently, and I actually had already been working on it when I got the request, so how to fly in Mine-imator. So what I'm going to do is cover the method that I used for the little opening sequence you saw there. There's probably more than one way of doing it, and maybe even simpler ways of doing it, but this is what I used in order to get the effect that I got and stuff. So hopefully it's not too confusing, but we're going to try to get into it and whatnot. So let's go ahead and set up our scene here. First thing I want to do is bring in a block. I'm just going to bring in a giant grass block. So we're just going to have something for Steve to jump off of, essentially. So let's go ahead and scale this up. Alright, so we want to set Steve up. So what we need to do is give him something that helps him to fly, as you may have noticed in the little opening sequence there. So I'm going to come up here and import an object. I'm going to bring in this Elytra, however you say it, rig, and I'm going to take it, and I'm just going to parent it to dang old Steve on his body, just like that, and boom, look at that. If we turn on some rendering here, you get to see all that good 3D-ness and whatnot. Ugh, looks so awesome. Alright, so we're going to take Steve and we're going to put him on top of that grass block. First of all, let's just move him down real quick. I don't know why. Alright, so what I'm going to do is basically the same thing we normally do with folders to get the rotation point that we want. So first thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and have him selected, and I'm going to put the folder on by clicking that button, and it automatically parents them because that's how it works. I'm going to change the name of this to Character Controller. Is that misspelled? I don't know, I can't think. Anyway, alright, so this is the basic setup we would normally have, and now I'm going to take Steve, and I want it to be around his waist, so I'm going to move him probably about -15, maybe -14, it doesn't really matter. And then that way we'll do this one and bump it up to +14. And there you go. So now we got the little rotation point there. Little refresher course for anyone who may have forgotten that little method there. Alright, so now is where we get into the more complicated bits. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually use text just so that we have a visual representation of what I'm doing. You can use a folder or whatever if you want to, but for the sake of this tutorial and for the way I did it in the little thing there, I'm going to bring in a piece of text. So I'm going to click on this, I'm just going to bring it in, it doesn't matter. And we're going to take the text and let's go ahead and parent this. So we're actually going to parent the human or the character controller to it. So let's select that. I'm going to drop it down on our text. And as you can see now, our text is what's controlling everything. So yeah. So the first thing I want to do, I'm going to just go ahead and rename our text here. I'm just going to say this one is going to be forward and backward or something like that. And we're just going to do like so. And then we're going to duplicate this. So I'm going to duplicate. And as you can see, it duplicated down here like this. This isn't what we want. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. And that leaves us with just the text. Of course, you don't have to do it exactly this way. This is just the way I'm going to go through it here. Let's go ahead and duplicate it another time because I want 3 of these. And we're going to go ahead. Let's rename this folder here by clicking on it and coming up here. I'm going to name it forward and back just like we did the other one. And actually on the text here, I just want that to be a dash. Now this is all just preference, I'm just showing you my method here. So there you go. Just like that, and that's how it's going to be. That's what it's going to look like. Alright, so now we got this one. I'm going to take it and parent it to the forward and back text as well. And the same for the third one here. I'm going to take it and parent it to this. And what I'm going to do actually is, it's kind of weird here, but I'm going to parent this one to that text. So now we have these. And then I'm going to grab our character controller and I'm going to parent it to the last one. So if you're keeping up, essentially what we have is this forward and back text is like the main thing that's going to control all of these. And then we have another text that's going to control itself and then everything below it. And then another text that's going to control itself and then everything below it, etc. Alright, so let's try to make a little bit more sense of this. So this next one is going to be up and down, I guess. So we're going to go up and down. And then on the text we're going to have here is up, dash, down, like so. And then for this one, we're going to call it side to side. And it's just be a little side to side. I don't know. You can name it whatever you want. Okay, so another thing we want to do, since I am using this as well, I'm going to go down here to the character controller and I'm going to say do not inherit the visibility. So since that's set up to not inherit the visibility, what we can do is when we go to the keyframe here, and if we tell these at, at the beginning we don't want them to be visible, then we can do that and Steve remains visible. Of course, you can toggle it off at the eye here, and then when you do that, it's going to toggle all of them off. But if I come down here to the character controller and turn that back on, it'll do that. So you may not necessarily have to have this toggled off. I'm not really sure. I haven't experimented with it, but if you have any problems with that, then that's how you can rectify it. So let's go ahead and turn this back on. And what I want to do is actually have these be above the character. So what I'm going to do is take the character and I'm just going to move him down like so. Let's just, I don't know how far we want him to go. Let's just say about -75. And then that means we're going to bring this up +75. And actually that needs to be a bit more. That would be, based on our numbers here, it's going to be 89, I think, because it needs to have an extra 14 on there. And perfect. All right. So there you go. So there's our text, and it's above the character, and this is really confusing at this point, I'm sure. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to kind of ignore our little setup there for now. Let's turn on the grid so that we can get some accurate movement here. And what I'm going to do is take the up and down. I'm going to move it. I'm going to actually probably leave that there, and then maybe we'll move the side to side down like this. And we're going to do something a little bit weird here. I want to go ahead and rotate this one like so. So we're just going to rotate it, 90 degrees. And then this one we're going to rotate back -90. And that's just because we're using the text here. I just wanted to have it so that they're not overlapping each other in what might be considered a logical way. So I'm going to reduce our grid size, and I want to move the up and down up like this. So that way we get this weird little grid thing of our text where we can kind of see which one's doing what. Oops, as we click on them and stuff. I hope that makes sense. That's just kind of a setup. If you had folders, which I would probably recommend if you know what you're doing with them, you would just have the little, the little axes when you clicked on it over here and stuff. So you wouldn't have to worry about all this. I'm just using this as a visual representation. All right, so now that we've got all that lengthy stuff set up, we're going to go ahead and go to our forward and back, which is the root of all of our stuff here. And we're just going to go ahead and move it up and put Steve on top of the dang old thing here. And then we're going to move it back like so. And there you go. He's kind of there, and we don't want that to be in like that. So what we have to do is move him up just a tad. And that's probably going to be, maybe 1 pixel, something like that. There we go. So 257 for the way I set this up. And now we have these extravagant controls for the character. As you may have guessed, essentially what we have here, if you watched my orbiting camera tutorial, this is essentially the same thing. What you're going to do is use these to move your character so that way you can get smoother movements. So let's see if we can do something with this. We're going to have Steve coming back here. Let's just line them up right around there. Let's just go 106, and that's pretty good there. And we want them to run up and jump off the edge and start flying. So maybe we'll go about 50 frames. And then what we're going to do is use the old automatic run cycle. So I'm going to go ahead and set another keyframe. Actually need it for the human here. And then we're going to highlight the first one and click on this. And we should get a good old run cycle there. Not too bad. All right, so then now I'm going to take this, the forward and back, and as you can see, the reason I'm using the text is so that we can keep up with which one does what. And as you can see, this one is forward and backwards, so what it's going to do is move them forward and backwards. And then we have up and down, that's going to move us up and down, and then we have side to side, that's going to move us to the left and to the right. So let's go ahead and take Steve and have him come over here with that one selected, and what we get is this run cycle that's not fast enough exactly, so let's go ahead and see if we can drag it in, make it a little bit faster. It's not going to look perfect, but we're just going to try to get it. Doop, doop, doop. And he looks kind of weird the way that worked out. And yeah, so he goes up there and then he's going to jump off, all right? So this isn't going to look perfect. Once again, like this is something that's a little bit more complicated and it takes a little effort to get things to look right with all the different types of moves you're going to be doing with a flying animation. But I just want to show you guys the basics. So here's what we're going to do. We're just going to have Steve basically just, let's say he's going to just run off. And maybe at this point we'll have him kind of rotate downward or something. So like right when he reaches this, we're just going to have him kind of continue going and lean off and drop off of the edge. So we're going to use the human here to do this because of our rotation point being on his feet. We can have him plant and just kind of go like so. And what we get is him doing this, like you, and he kind of does that. And what we can do there is have this kind of slowly move forward with that. So again, the way we've had this set up, you know, it's kind of awkward to animate it, but again, you can give yourself a little bit better setup. So what I'm going to do is just move him a little bit. So what you should get is just kind of like he's sliding forward and tilting, and then from here is when he's going to, you know, take off or whatever. So what we're going to do is have that happen, and then we're going to have him go, let's just say a little bit further. How about we go... Let's just jump up to frame 120 here just because. And all we're going to do with this one, it's going to look a little bit weird, but we're just going to take it and move him forward like that. And what you get is that. And that's not very cool. So let's go ahead and save. And now we're going to get to our up and down. So let's go ahead and set a keyframe there because we want that as our default position. And when he falls, we want to have him kind of go down a bit. So now with our up and down selected, we're going to take Steve and bring him down. Like so. Let's just say negative 25 maybe. I don't know, might be a bit much. It's not too bad. Something like that. And then maybe we'll have him lift back up to 0 again. So what you'll get is this move here. Because he's supposed to be falling, right? And another thing we may want to do is adjust the movement speed of our forward and backwards at some point. But for now, we're just going to go with that. And we're going to go ahead and set a keyframe for the character controller. So that when he falls like this, we want to kind of have him go into more of a dive. So let's say we'll go up about that many frames. It's about like 7 or something. And we'll have him go like this. That's actually... Alright, so we're going to have him... I forgot. We have this tilted. So let's go ahead and do like this. And like so. So what we're going to get is that right there. And we want to have him go like this. And stuff. So that's not going to look exactly right because of the way I did that. You might have to do some finagling. But we also want him to come down a bit further here. So we need to slow down some of this like forward movement because we want him to go forward, but he's in the process of going down, right? So we want to bring this back in a bit. And maybe, let's see. That's not too bad, maybe. Something like so. And that's obviously interfering with the way our rotation was meant to go. So, you know, we can finagle with this. And when he goes like this, we're just going to kind of move on ahead and iron this out as we go. So we want to go to his character controller. And at this point, we want him to begin angling upwards. Maybe we'll bring this to about here. And then something like that. And then we'll angle him back up. That doesn't look too bad. And then around this point, we're going to set a keyframe because we want him to start leveling out there. And then we're just going to take him and level him out basically 90 degrees. Of course, you may not want to use these exact terms when you're doing stuff, when you're animating, but yeah. All right, so that happens a little bit too slow. Let's go ahead and bring that in. We want him to kind of keep that fast motion. Something like that. And let's see here. All right, so what I'm going to do is actually use our forward and back keyframes here to kind of try to keep the legs lined up there a little bit better. So I'm just going to go by each little frame here and try to realign Steve. And we'll see what kind of results we get from that. It's not too bad. But of course, he kind of freezes at this point, and we don't want that. We want to have our up and down doing a little bit more for us at this point. So let's go ahead and come here. So right here, like where he finishes doing the little thing there, let's actually delete that. We're going to put a keyframe here. And we want this to line up like his feet shouldn't be going up higher. So I'm going to bring him down like so and see what that gives us. Not perfect. All right. Jumps a little bit too far down, so maybe we'll go like that. So basically the main issue we're getting here is from the way we tilted This, technically, you know, if I wanted to animate this a little bit easier, I would just get rid of that and go with the character controller here and rotate him and then just use the movement of this like I did here in order to keep his feet planted. I was trying to go with something a little bit easier, but it's actually coming back to bite us in the butt right now. But you get the idea. The whole point of what we're doing here is to use multiple points of rotation in order to get smoother movements. That's the goal here. And you know, it's hard to do it in a tutorial where you don't have a whole lot of time to sit there and finagle with things, but hopefully you guys get the idea and the information will be somewhat useful to you. Okay, so I went ahead and moved them down a little bit to try to get some more of this downward motion. And as you can see there, we're getting a very choppy but basic motion there. But one of the cool things about doing things this way is that since we have the forward and back object taking us forward and back and the up and down doing its thing, if you remember my orbiting camera tutorial, we can actually keyframe these individually and get better results and more smoother motion and stuff. So let's just say, let's see what we can work with here. As you can see, this is all linear and kind of blocky and whatnot. So let's just take this one. Let's have it go. We'll use the ease in, ease out sign and just see how that affects the look that we get. Now, obviously, this is also playing very quickly. We might want to space some of this out, but it's not too terrible. And we may also want to do, let's see, let's go with maybe making our character controller a similar effect. Let's go ahead and do the same transition there. And maybe we'll do it for this one as well. Probably could apply it to all of them. Let's just do that. All right, there we go. Let's see what that gives us. All right, not exactly a desirable effect. We gotta, you know, hone some of this in and make it a little bit better. But you get the idea. You can use these transitions, and since we're, like I said, since we're using these different things, we've got this one only controlling the forward and back motion. This one's only controlling the up and down. This one's controlling side to side. This is controlling rotation, and we can even use this one to control rotation. You have to be kind of strategic in it, as you can see here with some of the problems we're getting. But each one of these is controlling its own thing. So then we can keyframe them and use transitions in order to smooth out one motion and make it flow into another. And again, harkening back to the orbiting camera tutorial, you can overlap these keyframes so that it hides those motions even more. And we're just going to leave this as a really rough animation, unfortunately, but hopefully you guys get the idea and we can move on to more of how you can do the basic flying stiffs. That's really rough and embarrassing, but we're going to leave it. Hopefully the opening sequence was more impressive than this. All right, so we got Steve flying. He comes up and he levels out. That's basically what we want. You know, he kind of comes down, catches air, etc. Let's go ahead and save. And we want to have him continue on flying, and maybe we want him to bank. So this is where this is definitely going to come more into play with what I was talking about, is that after he comes up, let's just say right around here we want him to bank a bit. So we're going to go ahead and select these. I'm going to put keyframes on the human and the character controller. And I'm going to go ahead and set a side-to-side keyframe there. And now what I want to do, I'm just going to do a little bit of animation here for you guys, just to show you a little something. We want him to bank as he moves, right? So what we're going to do is look at our axes here. If I had this one, so as you can see, the axes are the way they would be if he was standing. If we use this one, you can see that the axes are different because we have them rotated forward, and that's unfortunately the way Mine-imator works, and that's why we have to do things like this. I'm just going to have him churn a little bit, so we're going to go to say frame 100, and we're going to have Steve bank like this, so he wants to churn right, essentially. So we're going to do like that, and we want him to begin moving right. So what we can do is use our side to side here, and as he begins to bang, let's just say maybe right around here as he's beginning to go, we're going to have this start to take us to the right. And I'm just going to go ahead and line these up, and we're going to take this and just have it go off to the side to side when we have, as you can see, the letters or the words here, our names are getting kind of jumbled up and whatnot, but again, this is just for visual reference. You can use folders so you don't see those, etc. So what we get here is Steve banks, and then you can see he begins to churn like that. And so once we get this motion here where he's doing his little thing, we also want Steve to churn. So we're going to go ahead and come out maybe around here, and we're going to use the character controller to turn him like this so that he's actually facing the way that he's trying to go. So you got to kind of mess with things and figure out what's giving you the best results and whatnot. But if we watch this, he begins to bank and then churn, and he starts to go in that direction. As you can see, I actually got kind of lucky there that I aimed him about the way he was going. So let's go ahead and save that. And that's essentially what you get, is this motion that he kind of tilts and churns and begins to go. So yeah, that's pretty much the basics of it, how you would do that. And as you can see, it kind of shoots off because of the way that our side-to-side motion here goes. If I were to bring this out to reduce that timing, then you'll see it's a little bit smoother, but it also kind of times up weird. Because this keyframe here stops short of this one, then that means he stops moving forward and then continues moving sideways, so that's why we get that motion. However, if we move this out and had him go a little bit further, let's go ahead and bring that over, and we'll see. I think he's going to go a little bit too slow once that begins to happen. Yeah, a little bit slow, so what we need to do is move him out more. Something like that, maybe. We'll have to kind of play with the timing there. Sorry if everything's really small on the screen. Since you're dealing with flying, it's kind of, wonky trying to see everything, but hopefully you guys can see well enough. And as you can see there, it kind of suddenly just jerks over, right? Well, that's one of the reasons we have this setup here, so we have this offset. So what I'm going to do is take a keyframe here, and let's go ahead and set one in. Maybe let's go ahead and delete that, actually. We'll bring it in. I don't know if it really matters too much where we put it, but I'm going to go ahead and put a transition on this to have it go into a slow down, the ease out sign. And then that's going to kind of speed this up a little bit, so you'll see that little jump there. I'm going to bring it out and hopefully even out that timing. So as you can see there, that transition is now much smoother. You notice that? How we kind of transition slowly into the stop there, so you don't get that jerking motion when the forward and back goes. And that's, again, the benefit of offsetting these keyframes by using these different folders or whatever objects you're using. You can do that, and it helps to smooth out that motion and make Steve look a lot more like he's flying, as you can see there. Kind of takes off there, and at that point, we can actually have him kind of tilt more and begin to fly all the way this way. So let's go ahead and just make him -90 there, so he continues tilting. As you can see, like that. That's probably not the best setup, though. Let's go ahead and bring this over here, and let's give this one the same kind of transition, so it just eases out. Still giving me a little bit too much of that. Let's go back to the ease in and out. Not too bad, not too terrible. This probably could be refined quite a bit. Alright guys, so what I went ahead and did is added a camera to Steve so that we can get kind of an up-close look at what we just did, and I'll go over a few tips of how to animate the character, his position and whatnot, and then I think that'll do it for this tutorial. I hope it wasn't too confusing and whatnot, so I hope you guys were able to learn something from this. If there was something I missed or whatever, then be sure to let me know in the comments and whatnot. But yeah, that's where we're going to leave that part for now and go into what this looks like. So it's not going to be perfect, but here we go. All right, and there's Steve flying and whatnot, so not too bad. It's, could definitely use a lot of refinement. That's one of the reasons I didn't have a tutorial last week, by the way, in case you were wondering, is because I was working on this trying to get the little intro sequence to look right, so hopefully that was worth the wait. All right, so what I'm going to do is have him not be so rigid. I'm going to bring his arm out a little bit. I'm going to have his arm kind of bend just a tad. Same for this one. Just going to have a basic little movement here. It doesn't have to be anything too crazy. And I might also have his legs kind of bend just a tad so he doesn't look quite so rigid. Just some little position like that at this point. So after he jumps, he goes into that position and looks like someone who actually enjoys flying a little bit. All right. And of course, I made his head look forward as he's flying and stuff. Alright, so you may be wondering about this Elytra rig, and that's, maybe that's a bit too much there, but that of course pans out. So at this point, you know, maybe the Elytra, or Elytra, however you say it, should expand. So I'm going to go to the Elytra rig here, and I'm going to expand it, and we have left wing, and right wing. Alright, if I could talk. Let's go ahead and zoom in on our timeline here, and I'm going to set a keyframe for both of those. And at this point, like when he's beginning to fly, we want it like pretty much right around here where it begins to pick him up or whatever. We're going to go to this one, and let's see if we can get a better view of this. There we go. I'm just going to bring this out. Let's just say about 30. It really depends on how you want it to look. So I'm going to bring this one out to -30, like so. And then his wings are fully deployed now. And as you can see, you can also rotate them this way if you wanted to. Let's try that for the heck of it. -15. That means this one should be +15. Now we got this angled kind of cool wing look and stuff. And yeah. And we can also, I'm going to put a transition on this, if I can talk. And let's just give it this one so it kind of flings open real quick. Let's see what that looks like on our little camera view here. And wrap this up. He runs and woo, his wings come open and he's flying. Steve is having a blast. All right, so there it is. Sorry if it was a rough tutorial. Sorry if it was tedious, because I know there was a lot of little things to cover, and I hope this wasn't too confusing for you guys once again. But in any case, that is the method that I use, and I thought I would share it with you guys. It's not as simple. I mean, if you wanted to, you can just have it be the character controller and see how you fare with that. It's just not going to produce as smooth of results for you. So that's why I wanted to cover this one, because I'm pretty sure you guys can figure out how to do it without this. I just wanted to cover a little bit more advanced method and whatnot. Once again, if you haven't seen the orbiting camera tutorial, I highly recommend you go back and watch that, where I kind of delve into this, like using multiple using folders or whatever to get smoother movements. It might help to flesh out this tutorial a bit for you in your mind and whatnot. But yeah, hopefully this was helpful to you guys. So that's going to be it. Oh yeah, if you like this Elytra rig or whatever, it's actually one that I made myself. If you like it, feel free to check out the description, where there will be a link to download it so you can use it for your own animations. All right. So once again, guys, I hope this tutorial was helpful to you. I hope you learned something, and I hope it wasn't too terrible and confusing. All right. If you did, feel free to hit that like button, comment, and subscribe to become a citizen today. Share it with your friends and your family and your pets. Feel free to check out that Patreon link if you want to support me and the channel more directly. And with that, that's going to be it. So thanks again, guys, and I will see you in the next video.